Let's continue the conversation with Andy, so you'll have opportunity to ask her questions as well as other panelists. There are a few other fierce females who all strengthened their resiliency muscle through the years. I welcome to the stage Carol Hutchins, head coach, University of Michigan softball program. Yeah. Once a coach, always a coach. Former coach. The winningest coach in NCAA softball history. Carol has guided the Wolverines to an NCAA title and 22 Big Ten Conference titles, and solidified Michigan among the top softball programs in the country. She was inducted into the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association Hall of Fame in 2006. Amazing.
Go Blue!
Go Blue! Or for those of you in creative and marketing, Pantone 282C.
Thank you.
Therese P. Sagbo, Vice President, Talent and Culture at Kirko. She's responsible for overseeing their human resources functions, which include talent recruitment, training and development, benefits, compensation, and company culture. She has successfully run her own consulting business, TM Peace and Associates, Inc., for over 14 years. Therese, thank you. And Lauren Davis, Regional President at Huntington Bank. Lauren has led the West Michigan team at Huntington Bank as the regional president since July of 2022. With a remarkable journey fueled by a lifelong passion for banking, Lauren has continually excelled from her first role in retail banking to operations, risk management, finance, and commercial banking to her current role at the helm. And of course, Andy Simon, who you have already met, and who you know as a fierce and resilient woman. Guiding us through this conversation is my colleague, Monica Scott, managing producer at MLive Media Group. Monica, the floor is yours.
A round of applause. How much Well, one thing I wanted to say right off the bat is that, I feel like all of the topics that they provided us today have just been very interesting and engaging and things that we can all use in our personal lives and professional lives. One thing about this topic that I find, so interesting is the fact that everyone, goes through things. I mean, we're all managing our lives, and life can be challenging at times in our personal and our professional lives. And we have to figure out a way to manage those times effectively so that we can be happy, so that we can be productive and be healthy. And I'm so grateful to these leaders today for being willing to come out and share their career and life journeys so that hopefully you can benefit from it. So with that said, let's kick it off. Andy, I'm going to ask you the first question, which is, what does resilience mean to you personally? And how has it shaped your journey in overcoming challenges?
After 20 minutes, I'm sure I have one thought left for you on how resilience. I just think that life is a very interesting journey, and I enjoy the unknown. So consequently, I'm always trying to figure out how to adapt and be resilient when things aren't exactly the way I thought they were going to be. I have a problem. I'm an explorer. And when you're an explorer, you really are moving into territory all the time, and you just have to adapt and rise to the occasion and never feel that it's bad. It's always an opportunity. So I look forward to the things I don't know, which is scary.
Thank you. Lauren, I'll ask you the same question in terms of keeping people from being stressed out as they try to do their careers.
Yeah, so when I was thinking about this question, I spent a lot of time on it because I think for me resilience means when I was a young girl, younger than I would like to have been, but when I was a young girl, my parents passed away. And so at a really young age, you have to learn about resilience in a sense of what is catastrophic and what is, can I put it away for tonight and come back to it tomorrow? At the bank, we often talk about the fact that no one's gonna die at the bank if we don't make the right transaction. We can refund a customer's fee. We can fix a loan document. So it's not like brain surgery. So it's really important that you look at life in a way of how do I look at perspective. And the other thing that taught me was empathy. You know, you kind of talked a little bit about this, but empathy to people who are going through very difficult times. And it's not all about, yes, we want to generate the revenue, don't get me wrong, but we're people first. And it really provided me empathy to understand where people were at in their journey, whether it's taking care of small children or sick children or taking care of aging adults, parents. It's important that you have empathy as you move through that life cycle with people. So those would be the two things that I would take away from as resilience.
Thank you. Teresa?
Sure. For me, when I think about resilience, I also think about something visual. So I think about a rubber band. When you think about a rubber band, it stretches and it continues to stretch. It never really goes back to its original form. So that's part of your growth. When you think about being a person, you stretch, you grow. And you just don't stretch so far that you break. So you have to know yourself and know what your breaking point is. And before you get there, you figure out how to move forward.
I'll have you elaborate a little bit on that in the second question in terms of how do you maintain a positive mindset and keep pushing forward in the face of that adversity or difficult circumstance.
Absolutely. So I think for me, it all relates to how I was raised. So one, we were taught to rely on God. So everyone that knows me, that works with me, they know I have a bracelet on. It's the 23rd Psalm. It's my foundation. If I don't have the 23rd Psalm on, I have another bracelet with some kind of scripture on it. So one, we were taught to believe in God. Two, my father said we can't use the word can't in our household. So that was not allowed. And we had to learn how to phrase things in ways that didn't mean can't. It meant that you could. And you always figured out that things were possible if you believed. They recognized that we would face challenges as African American children, my siblings and I. And so they set the stage for us to really think about, you can do anything if you believe that. And the other thing was he would always tell us, you get up every day, put one foot in front of the other, and you keep moving forward. Because as long as you're moving forward, you always have some momentum, and you're always doing something. And then the last thing would be, envision what you want. So if you can see that for yourself, then you can achieve it. And so I'll tell a quick story. I went to law school. When I was in law school, I was working at Comerica Bank. I had a family. I was traveling all over the place. We were working in acquisitions. And I got sick my first year. So I had to defer my admission. So when it came time to go back, I kept having the doubt and fear. And fear, false evidence appearing real is what I call it. But I was doubting myself. And my mother asked me a question. She said, what do you want? And I said, I want to finish school. And she said, well, see yourself walking across that stage every single day. And so I did that for the 3 years I was in law school. Every single time I had doubt or fear about something, I saw myself walking across that stage until I actually walked across the stage and got my diploma.
That's great. Coach Ashley?
The first question,
Yes, I'll have you piggyback on to what she had to say regarding pushing through that adversity.
you know, I spent my entire life in athletics. I went straight from high school, I went to college, and for those of you who aren't Michigan fans, I went to Michigan State, so I got it both ways there. And then I went straight into coaching at the college level. I went to grad school at Indiana, and my mom years ago told me, you know, you never left college. So why would you? And so resiliency, you know, to me it's a skill that you have to learn and practice. And we talk about it all the time in athletics, but I have experienced more failure than you gave me credit for at the podium. And at some point you have to take a look at, am I going to focus on failing, or am I going to start focusing on what it's going to take to get to where I want to go? And those of us who, that's when you call that optimism, I guess. I don't know if I was real optimistic as a coach. I was like, what are you doing out there? But I remember my early years of coaching when I was still trying to figure it out. I wasn't all that much older than my student athletes. And every day we go into practice, and in practice you practice all the skill sets. Throwing to your targets, everybody throws it well. Taking ground balls on the infield, hitting, all the things we practice. And we would do it until we did it pretty good, and I'd be like, oh good, we're ready for the game. And by the second pitch, I was F-bombing. What is going on out there? This doesn't look like practice at all. And I realized that my own expectation had to be that you don't ever arrive at success. You don't arrive at perfection. It is an ongoing daily work. And that there's ebbs and flows in all the games we play and all the teams I coach. And fortunately for me, now I'm an old coach, there's ebbs and flows in our lives. And sometimes you're in your ebb and sometimes you're in your flow. And you have to stay focused on getting back to what you want to see happen and how can I make it happen. And understand that only you control you. You control how you respond to everything, which I will probably say in every question you ask. You know, we teach our student athletes, you are in control of how you respond. You don't control everything that happens to you. And the gift of perspective comes after you've failed, lost the games, and then you realize it propelled you to win games down the road. And you don't get to know that at the time. You have to go through the pain of the agony of defeat, we used to say. But perspective is a gift, but that comes over time, and a lot of it is just time and patience.
Thank you. Coach Hutch, I'm going to also ask you to discuss the role of self-awareness in building resilience and navigating life's challenges.
I think the role of self-awareness is in everything we do every day. I talk a lot about leadership. I speak at a lot of conferences like this. And I always say leaders think, you know, kids, our student athletes, they're the captain of the team. So they walk in the locker room, they tell everybody what to do. And everybody's like, that's bullshit, you don't do it. Because you have to be the first one to do that, and you have to do it every time. Now, while I do these things sometimes, leaders do it all the time. They do it every time. And you have to be really self-aware. And so I think the role it plays in resiliency, so to speak, is, as a coach, the leader, I had to always self-reflect, am I walking the walk? And I, too, believe you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you and that you will listen to, and you will let them help you, because great leaders don't try to do it by themselves. Because if you're the smartest one you think you're the smartest one in the room, you should get a better room. And that's really what happens to people who fail at leadership. They thought they were the smartest one in the room. So I think self-awareness is an important quality regardless of what we're talking about.
That's a good way to transition into our fourth question. And Lauren, I'll direct that to you. Can you share some practical strategies or habits that have helped you develop resilience in your personal and professional life?
Yeah, so a lot of I agree with Coach. Surrounding yourself with people who aren't the same as you. It's really important that if I'm somebody who, and I'm somebody with lots of energy and it doesn't drain, and other people are like, okay, calm down, we don't need that much energy. And so and ebbs and flows. And so we refer to it as don't let your highs get too high or your lows get too low. If you can stay here in middle ground when things seem tragic, they're really not tragic. And you've got the right circle around you to support you through those challenges. The other thing I think I would say is I too had a mom who she stayed at home and didn't work out of the home, and her parents couldn't afford to put her through college. And if you ask me, she was smarter than my dad, even though he went to college. And so I often looked at her and would call her and say, what should I do? And what was great about my conversations with her is she'd listen to all the challenges that I had and what I thought were obstacles, and she would actually let me work it through in the conversation. And by the end, she would say things like, so you figured it out? And I'd be like, okay, and I was calling you for advice. So it's having people like my mom or other people in your life who can be those people that you bounce those ideas off. Another quick example is I tend to have a strong personality, and so I can be a little bit intimidating. I can't believe it because I think I'm a really nice person. And I had a meeting one day, and there were several men in the room, and they felt really strongly about a particular topic, and so did I. And I came home, and I don't do any of the cooking because I'm not good at it. And my husband's standing at the kitchen stove, and the first thing I said to him is, "Do you think I'm difficult to work with?" And there was this pause, and he said, "Did you hear what you just said?" And then I proceeded to share what I was frustrated with about, and he said, "Lauren, what I love about you is your passion, but sometimes when you're super passionate about things, you stop listening." Anybody else had said that to me, I would have been like, "You don't know me." But when he said it, when it's your inner circle of people that you trust what they think, it makes a difference. So that's what else I would say.
I appreciate you sharing that story. Andy, can you share some of your story?
Well, it's an interesting question about self-awareness. And I often think that we can't see ourselves until we look in that mirror and really see what we're looking at. But I too have a husband. We've been married a very long, long time, and he is my mirror. And like yours, he keeps me aware of what I'm actually doing when it seems to be so perfect and it's not going where I thought it ought to be. But I don't think we often see ourselves. And I do think it's hard to know who we are without having an echo back. I'm an anthropologist, and Gregory Bateson once talked about the fact that you only know who you are in contrast to what you're not. And that was how boys and girls in New Guinea Highlands figured it out, and how I think we figure ourselves out. It's only by seeing who we're not that we begin to understand what we're doing. But I don't think it's easy. And as Coach was talking, I think you need a lot of life before you begin to know who you really are.
How do you support others in overcoming challenges and building that resilience?
Oh, I think her mother is how you support others. You listen, right? I mean, it is not uncommon to have, we do a lot of coaching and people call and they just really need someone to talk to who can hear them. And it isn't what they're saying, it's helping them understand the meaning of the words that they're talking about. And I do think that our job is to listen more, say less, and hear, and let them hear it. Because quite frankly, you end up working it out by yourself if you have a place that's safe. And I do think psychological safety, about which is a lot of research today, is really critical to allowing people to become who they really are supposed to be. So they don't feel at risk, but they feel safe.
I would just say ditto to what Andy said. I think that you listen, you help others. I think it's important, we talked a lot about earlier today, mentors. Your mentor can help you work through things. We talked about networking. You're all here, you can network with each other. This is a great opportunity to help support someone else, and then also think about your own support group. Who's your family? Who's your friends? Who do you hang out with? I have a group of HR professionals. We meet every other month. We talk at dinner. Not only do we solve our problems, but we solve the world's problems. And if they would just listen to us, we'd be in a better place, because as you all know, women, we know it, we get it. But it's a way to, again, help support each other and to help each other figure out how to move forward. But you listen, and that listening is so key. And listening is also part of self-awareness. So if you know yourself, you can listen to others, because you don't have to always be the one talking.
Can you talk about the importance of embracing failure as a learning opportunity and catalyst for growth?
Sure. So I think that when you approach a challenge and adversity as a learning opportunity, obviously you do grow. But it's also a way for you to think about how you move through life. Life's not a straight path. I think Andy said that at the podium. Your personal life, your professional life, it's not a straight path. You're going to have challenges at work, you have challenges at home, you lose loved ones. All of those things happen, but you have to figure out how you're moving past it. And if you can grow from it, then you can learn how to keep moving forward. You can learn how to embrace it and see it as an opportunity. Opportunities create creativity. You can be much more innovative about maybe the solution. I think the other thing is, as a learning opportunity, laugh at yourself. I mean, sometimes just stand in the mirror and laugh at yourself. It helps, trust me. It helps to relieve the pressure and sometimes the things that you're feeling. Sometimes it's okay to cry. You may need to cry to relieve that pressure. But again, what did you learn from it? I think it was Tasha on the other panel said that she's been trying to lose the same 20 pounds for quite some time. And I'm in the same spot that she's in, and my coworkers that are here, they know that with me. And so, you gain a pound, you lose a pound. Why did I gain that pound today? I ate those chips yesterday. Okay, what did I learn? Don't eat the chips the next day. So it's all a learning opportunity. It's all the way that you embrace it, and it's just really giving yourself some grace to move forward.
Lauren, can I get you to share your thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I love the give yourself grace. Think about how many times just in this room that we haven't given ourselves grace. Think about the last week. You weren't the best wife, you weren't the best mother, you weren't the best sister, you weren't the best friend. We constantly are in our head telling ourselves that we're not. And like Coach said, we need to start thinking about what we are. And so when I think of this question, I think of how we need to change in our mindset that it's an opportunity. So I think about, and again, I relate it to banking, but in banking there's lots of mergers and acquisitions. And so if every single time there's a merger and acquisition and I'm worried about what's my next role gonna be, my role's probably gonna be eliminated. So I tell people, put your head down, work really hard. They're looking for the people that are generating revenue, keeping business moving, taking care of customers, and those that are spinning around in circles trying to figure out what the future is gonna look like that they can't control. So again, in your mind, you need to say, okay, a merger creates opportunity. Opportunity will create innovativeness at the company or wherever you're working in your life. It's all going to create opportunity. The other thing I would say on supporting others would be again, back to my empathy, I tend to think about when people have a loss, I'm the person that's going to be sending you a card for the next year because I want you to know that it didn't end there. And so I refer to myself as a bucket filler. Again, I have a lot of passion and energy, so I like to fill people's bucket when they least expect it, when they think no one else is thinking about them, when they're going through a tough time and everyone else has forgotten what that's about. So I tend to fill buckets that way. I also fill buckets where I'm a note card writer, which has kind of gone out. Maybe is coming back, but I love writing handwritten notes. I love getting mail. So, not junk mail, but real mail. So when we got married, I was super excited every day back in the day, you'd run out to the mailbox and you'd open to see if you had RSVPs. I loved that. So I love real snail mail. So anyway, I feel like being a bucket filler of others, and if we all think about who have we filled a bucket for recently, when we're not thinking about ourselves, what can really help you be resilient, or when you're going through a challenging time, is to think about others. And that helps pull you out of that time where you're feeling like things aren't going your way.
Thank you. What advice would you give to others who are struggling to find resilience and strength in the face of adversity? I'm going to ask that of you, Coach Hutch.
Well, some of the best things that happen in your life, and to me, athletics has been just such a microcosm for really any other type of corporation or business who's trying to bring a group together to achieve success, however you define your success. But I can tell you that you've never met anybody who's very successful that just started, that came out of the womb and knew they were there, I'm success. It's not how it works. And you have to go through the road of failure. The road to success has a stop sign, and that's failure. And the people that stop at the stop sign say, I failed, or they quit and they go the wrong direction. And you choose. Everything in life is a choice. We teach our young people, you're making these choices. You control only what you can control. And the things that you don't control, you have to let go of. But what choices do you make? And successful people say, I'm not stopping here, and they keep going. You get right back on the horse. And really some of the best experiences that I can use, in 2005, we won the national championship. And it was a big deal. It was, ESPN had just started really focusing on women in sport. We were all over ESPN for 9 days. And, but I'm gonna tell you this story I told recently. In 2004, we were at the World Series. We were 0-2 in the series. It was personally my 7th trip as the head coach at Michigan, and we had a combined record of 2 wins and 14 losses over that period. That's all ESPN could put up. Michigan, losers, losers. And I remember getting in the elevator after we lost. Both games were ahead and we lost. And I was feeling pretty, woe is me. And I got in the elevator, I looked at my assistant, and I go, I don't want to come back. I don't ever want to come back. We had quite a string of getting there. I said, what's the point of coming? We don't ever do anything. We don't do anything well here. And so unfortunately, I didn't stay stuck on that very long. And we went back and we were propelled to be great. I had so many returners that weren't afraid to lose. They're like, we've lost. We lose games in softball. We lose games in basketball. You lose things in life. That's not the end of life. It's the beginning of a way to take a better look at it. What can you do better? What can you do different? And you're the only one that can do it. It's one of the most empowering things in the world when you realize, I did this.
What advice would you have?
So the opposite of her stop, don't stop doing it. I say stop, pause, and breathe. Take a deep breath. Look at where you are. And then think about what are your priorities? What is it that you need to focus on? And when you can start to see some focus, you can start to think about an action plan. And you think about some small incremental steps that can help you to move forward, and don't see things as setbacks, but see them as a way that something just propelled me forward, because now I have an opportunity to think about it. And I can keep going. And the other thing is, if you tell yourself you can't, you won't. If you tell yourself you can, you will. So again, thinking positively has a tremendous impact on how you feel emotionally and physically. And if you can keep that uplifted spirit through it all, you can move through the adversity or the challenge. So I think you stop, you breathe, pause, prioritize.
We have so much experience on the stage, I'm going to have everyone answer that question. What advice would you give?
I guess the advice I would give is know your inner self. And again, I know I keep going back to this, but losing parents at a really young age puts things in perspective for me. So when I'm making a decision at work of what should I do, should I be at my child's event, or should I be at work doing whatever that work thing is? In my eulogy, are my kids going to say that I was at work and I was this great regional president? No, they're not. They're going to remember every game I missed. And so for me, those are the times where I say I'm not going to think about what other people want. I'm going to think about what's most important to the people who are closest to me.
You know, this is a marvelous conversation, and I'm in awe of what perspective, even my own story. I juxtapose what I'm watching in my grandkids and what I'm watching in my friends, who I admit are a little bit older than us, but not a lot. And it doesn't much matter where you are in life's journey. The challenges are challenges. And I'm watching my 17-year-old grandson, he's 18 now, play lacrosse and football. He's always sitting on the bench waiting to go in. But boy, does he get out there and practice and practice and practice, and always with an attitude of being part of the team. And when he does play, he plays with great passion. They're just a lot of good folks, and they went to the championship and won, and he was pretty proud of being part of something. And I do think that being part of something is really important. And my elder friends were losing a lot of friends. You reach an age where they do this thing called retire and they get sick. And it is a really interesting time for us to remember every day is a gift, and how you live it is extremely important. And I don't know why that's coming out of my thinking about this resilience question, but it's a very good time for us to all reflect on where we are, what we're thinking about, and how to turn all those lemons into real good lemonade, because add a little sugar to it and it tastes real good. And it doesn't matter whether you're starting out or where you are. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's what my thought is.
It does, thank you. When I was given this question, I thought, this is something that I really felt like everyone in the room could benefit hearing everyone's perspective about this. And, you know, I know in my own life, I've had things come up, I was lost of parents, or siblings, or maybe a challenging situation at work where you were stressed out and you were trying to figure out what's the right course for this, and you needed to be resilient. And so I wanted to pose that question to you. If you had a recent example that you could give about a time that you needed to be resilient. I'll start back with you, Andy.
Oh, how to be resilient. Yes, I'm sorting through my head about how to be resilient. To be honest with you, speaking today was a challenge. I wasn't quite sure how to make it come alive. And I say that to you in all honesty because I knew I was here in part because we had this new book. But I needed to figure out how to make the book come alive to you in a way that could transform your own sense of your purpose and yourself into something even to the next stage, whatever that might be. And I share that because that's been the most important resilience. I can't tell you how many drafts I had, how much practice I did, how much rehearsal time. It mattered, and I hope it mattered to you because I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, and I hope I came up with something that worked.
You did. It was excellent. All right.
Okay, so mine would be, I think about the most difficult time in my career would have been, you know, I've been through mergers. You get kind of used to, okay, this is what we do, this is a process we go through. But in 2017, I'd been with the employer for like 25 years and hadn't had a merger in 17. And so I decided to go to a small community bank, chemical bank. And then the pandemic happened. And then a merger to TCF happened. And then a merger to Huntington happened, all during a pandemic. So I'm calling customers to tell them, you have a new banker, we have a new online system. I mean, it felt like the world was coming down on me. Employees were deciding this isn't the place for me, how are you gonna keep it all together? And I was like, we are not losing a single customer on my watch. But then again, had to take a breath, step back and realize maybe this isn't the right fit for every customer and I can't die trying this. So for me, it was really realizing I learned a lot about my leadership and the fact that during good times it's easy to lead. When coach is winning games, it's easy to be the coach. When she gets in the elevator and it's like, oh, this is a terrible day, I just want to go home, is when everybody's looking at her to say, are we going to do this? Can we do this? And you need to be strong in those days. So I actually learned more about myself during that time when we were doing everything from home, trying to go through a merger, taking care of customers, taking care of colleagues, because they too were on a journey of the unknown, and they were looking to me to lead them. So that would be my most recent example.
For me, I think I have, well, two. I'd say one from a personal side, it's reestablishing a new norm. Like, who's your family? As things change, people transition. Who's your family? And how do we now become the elders of the family versus being the children of the family? And trying to figure that out and establish yourself. And then you have, you know, your nieces and nephews running around because they grew up with you, and they're like, well, who are you to tell me to do that? And you're like, well, wait, I'm the aunt. That's what I'm telling you to do it. And so it's just establishing that new norm in our family. And then I guess the other would be around the pandemic. We worked for our commercial real estate and investment company, and we didn't have a business continuity plan. But, you know, originally we were stumped. What do we do? But then, you know, you dig a little deeper and you realize you have things within you, and that is, I realized that I did a lot of business continuity plans at Comerica Bank. And so I took those skills and we were able to transfer them so that it worked for Kirko. And so it's just, it's digging deep. So you dig deep into where you are and you figure out how to move forward.
Well, obviously I had to be the leader of the whole dugout, and we're in the middle of the game and shit's happening, and I don't get to check out, and I don't get to be focused on woe is me. I gotta make sure we keep all of them reminded that we can still do this. And many a time I walk into a huddle I would say one of two things. First, I'd say, quit worrying about losing. We are losing. So play to win. And they'd be like, oh, and they'd snap out of it. Or sometimes I would just get them together and say, you guys are so tight around the anus that you can't even fart. And they would laugh. And then they would realize how stupid they were. And we'd shake out of it. But I think about it, I'm an avid golfer. And I'm pretty good by some standards. But I went out to play just a couple days ago. And out of 18 holes, I was in 16 sand traps. I played this course, U of M course, I'm not in any sand traps. And I just couldn't believe it. And I got out of every one of them. And by the last one I was in, the guy I was playing with, never met him before, we just ended up together. He goes, that was a nice shot. I said, well, I should be pretty good at this by now. But I just took it upon myself to remind myself after the 6th sand trap, this is my day to practice playing out of trouble. Because in life, you're always in trouble. And in golf, you hit off into the wrong fairway, you're in trouble. But you can always get back into the fairway, you can always get back into it. And maybe you can still par the hole, or maybe you get a bogey. But you know what? Stay even keel. As you said earlier, we don't get too high and we don't get too low. It's like, here's the obstacle. I'm driving down the street, a tree falls. I don't just sit there and say, gee, I can't go. I'm like, what's the solution? There's a solution to everything. How can we do this? What can we do to get out of it? And some days in softball we lost. And I mean, we lost. But we're going to rebound tomorrow. We're going to make sure we take care of our attitudes. And we're going to come back tomorrow to get it done. And that's how we have to really go through life. Is some days the ball bounces your way and sometimes it goes in the sand.
Thank you. Therese brought up the pandemic, and I was wondering, Lauren, if you could comment on leading pre-pandemic and post-pandemic.
Yeah, so pre-pandemic, everybody wanted capital and things were great and everybody wanted to open an account and it was good times. And then I would say post-pandemic, in addition to, everybody's concerned about safety and soundness, they want to understand a lot more about their bank than they've ever asked us before. They want to know what our capital position is compared to our peers. What does that mean? They also want to know what our liquidity looks like, which is all important things. But I wasn't used to consumer customers asking about the bank. And a lot of that had to do with media sharing, kind of what was happening. And then now we just had a couple bank failures last year. So that made it even more on the minds of people. I think as far as the economy, I think a lot of our companies came out of the pandemic because everything was kind of locked down, and then this full wave of demand happened that a lot of our companies showed 22 and early 2023 doing great. They worked through a lot of the challenges on supply chain. They continuing to work through some inflationary issues. But now we're kind of seeing that kind of settle down. We also saw during the pandemic a lot of companies that sold. So think about it's a 5th generation company and they've been through 2008, 2009, that was difficult. They've been through the pandemic, they're now going through supply chain issues. Their kids don't want this company and they just want to retire. And the average age of business owners in our marketplace, I would say West Michigan, is in their late 60s. So if they don't have children to turn their companies over to, they're looking for alternatives. So there was an increase in businesses who were looking to sell. And they were looking to the bank to say, who should I talk to? What should we do? So we converted from, okay, we're doing financing to now we're advising clients on what their next step of the journey for their business would be. So that was before and after. But real quick, before we go to the next question, I think you should share your resilience that you shared with me right before we started, because I think a lot of us have had this situation, so.
Okay, so I was telling Lauren earlier that they reached out to me about moderating a panel, and I had never done it before, and I was like, I feel like you should try to get out of your comfort zone. So instead of saying, oh no, I have a conflict, I did agree to it, and it's been a great experience for me getting to know these these ladies and read their bios, and I really, leaning into what they could offer you today, but thanks. Yeah. So, a lot of the speakers today have said, raise your hand, take advantage of opportunities because you can grow from it. And this has been a growing experience for me. And also just being here, listening to all of the other speakers talk about the various things that have helped them get to the places that they are. I'm just really enjoying today. That said, I wanted to also ask a question of Therese regarding resiliency and human resources, because I know you have over 25 years in human resource management roles, and I feel like, particularly coming out of the pandemic, that's been an issue. I was just wondering if you could comment on what's in terms of human resources and dealing with some of the issues coming out of the pandemic as it relates to resiliency.
I think the biggest issue we face is remote work. And people don't want to come back to the office. And so when you are trying to recruit, if you're in an industry where you're in the office, and we're in the office, so anyone that would apply for a job, well, we're in the office. Right, so we're in the office. And so when you're trying to recruit top talent and they want to work from home, but your particular company does not support that, I think it's very difficult. And then how do you explain that? So our policy is you can work one day from home after you've been on our employment roll for 6 months. But what happens between months 1 through 6? And then, so it's a challenge. I think it's recruiting talent. I think it's the work from home component. I think it's finding the talent. People don't want to work as hard, we found, as you used to work. And so, granted, there are priorities, there's balance, but you have to still work hard to get ahead, and people don't always want to work as hard. So finding that talent is also a challenge. And then I think it's I grew up in an era where you worked for a company for a long time, so you had seniority. And now there's more job hopping. And you understand why, because there's growth opportunities in other organizations that may not exist in the one that they're coming from. Or they may have the flexibility in their schedule. So that also changes the dynamic of it all. But I think the talent component is the biggest challenge since
I wanted to make sure to give ample opportunity for everyone to ask questions, so I'm going to have a hand go around and pass it. Someone has a mic.
Term softball, I don't agree with it. If you've ever been hit by a softball, it is not soft. There's larger mass to it than a baseball. It's much larger.
Thank you, Kathy.
I've been hit by a few.
Right, Carol, I'm dying to ask you this question. So I really liked what you said about leaders have to lead by doing it themselves every day. I understand that. At any time in your career, did you look around and still see that no one was following? Did you have, because it's hurting Indians when you've got that big of a team and you're trying to get them to focus. And did you have faced that challenge?
Well, no doubt. I think the biggest thing that I've learned in leadership is if they're not following you, you can't blame them. That, what am I not doing? And the biggest thing I learned, speaking of empathy, was when you treat people from your position that you care about them, that you are a human being first, and you are authentic and genuine in yourself. Because I'm first and foremost just a person. That's all I am. That's all of us are. We're people. And in leadership, I was just talking to a group the other day. We all talk about leadership. Leadership is people. What are we leading? We're not leading cats, although sometimes it feels like it, herding cats. But I've learned that when things weren't going my way, when one kid couldn't do it right, they were just a dummy. When the whole team couldn't do it right, I'd look myself. And that's where it starts. Yourself.
Coach Carol, my question is for you as well. And first I want to say how cool for the girls to have been coached by you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that's true, and I'm sure my daughter, there's times when she was not happy that I was her mother, so, but, right, these stay in us. My question is, what did you say to the pitcher when you either had to pull her off the mound or you were getting ready to pull her off the mound so that she could have the right state of mind? What did you say to her?
Well, if I was gonna pull her off the mound, I just walked up to the umpire and she would see me and I'd give her the "you're coming out" sign. Because at that point, when they're coming out, you just gotta let them go through what they're going through and give them some type of encouragement, high five them, give them a hug, give them a few minutes. A lot of times when I would go to the mound, I would be out there to try to help them get out of their own way, because the majority of things that were going on were in between their ears. And I would often just try to blow it out of them, so to speak. When my pitching coach would make a trip to the mound, her role was to do simply like make technical changes, give her a little advice about, you know, some of the pitches she's throwing. But my job was always to let them know that you are giving that team, the opponent, that hitter, the opponent, way too much credit. And you just throw the pitches that you throw in the bullpen, and that will be good enough. You know, and face it, have to teach all of us, women, we need to lift each other up and value our own strengths. And women tend to be more self-doubting than men, for whatever reason, I don't know. And convince each other that you've trained hard and you're where you need to be. But we need to help support that in regards to what profession you're in.
Sorry, this one's also for Coach. As a mom of a softball player, a wife of a coach, and also just someone that's followed softball for years now, I want to thank you for what you've done. And you don't know, but Rachel Fullerton, who she's the hitting coach for the Chicago Cubs triple level team, she said she's there because of you. And only because when my daughter and her were talking one day, she said that she wanted to be more involved in baseball, and Rachel kept saying how it's a boys' land, and my daughter kept saying, yeah, but look at Coach Hutch, she's out there, and you know, she's a coach, so why can't you? So just thank you for the why can't you moments that you've given all of the girls, and as a mom of a softball player, just truly thank you.
That's what this song is all about, right? That's everybody in this room.
Any other questions? One right here.
Hi. This question is for all of you, but specifically Therese. I'm curious how your journey, or how resilience looks when, you know, you look somewhat different than the rest of the leadership team at your organization, or you maybe don't have your last name on the door, so to speak. Do you have to bring in different tools? Does it look different for you, given the male-dominated sort of industry that you're in?
So I would say that there's been no leadership team in which anyone has looked like me. So if that was in banking, it was insurance. If it was now in commercial real estate, I think what you have to do is show up every day. You show up every day, you work hard. You sometimes have to work harder than others to prove yourself, but you show up every day. You have to be confident in who you are. You can't doubt yourself. You can't judge yourself that you are not worthy to be there. So as long as you're confident and that confidence shows up, they respect that and they understand that. You have a seat at the table. You deserve the seat at the table. You paid the price to get to the table, and so you make the most of it.
A lot of people about negotiating their salaries, because I don't know why, you can only think of a couple reasons why in sport, but probably in all of our corporate worlds, women are generally paid less than the men, a lot. And now we're getting to the point where women have better contracts, and I can't tell you how many women that I say go in there and ask for more. They're like, I'm gonna get this much, ask for more. Oh, I don't know. I said, they're not going to give you what you asked for, but they're going to give you more than they were going to. And you know, some of the things you learn by watching the men play the game, because the men play the leverage game, And you know what? Why not us? But more than anything, you have to demand what you deserve. Not just ask for what you want. Demand what you deserve. And you can't let, they don't have power over you. So because they want to dismiss us, no. Because you're not going away. And I've had a few people younger than me say, I know I'm just getting really tired. I'm like, really? But that's what they want. They want to wear you down so you'll go away. They want you to feel bad. They'll play to your guilt. And we can't go there. We need to demand what we deserve, because you have to first value yourself if you think anybody else is going to.
But that, because I've been coaching some women and men, and the men don't quite know what to do when you go in and say, I demand more money. And they don't know what to do. And they say to me, how am I supposed to talk to her? And I just am sort of like, well, you know, give her more money. I mean, what is it you don't understand? She doesn't want to work here unless you give her more money. She got her MBA and she wants more money. And she came across pretty calm and, you know, and he just didn't know what to do, which was an interesting coaching session.
But you're right. I think the same thing. So I had a situation where I wanted a role, and you know how you overly want a role, and so you're like, I'll do whatever it takes to get it. And I went back to that advisor, my husband, at home and said, here's what I'm gonna do, here's what I think I should get, here's what I think my pay should be, here's what my stock options should look like, whatever. And he said, well, if they don't give you everything you want, tell them you don't want the job. And that next day I went to work and they didn't give me what I wanted. And I told them I didn't want the job, and then I went back to my desk and I called him on the phone and I said, if I don't get this job, I'm gonna be so mad at you because this is my dream job. I got the job, I got more time off than I needed, I got more PTO, I mean, it was unbelievable, but it was like one of those, you've gotta ask for it. And I realized once I asked, now I'm going around telling every single female, let me help you negotiate this, because if you want a $10,000 increase, you need to ask for a 15 or a 20, because they're gonna bring it down. And you can't be afraid, because the men in the room are all every quarter telling their boss all the things that they've done that they deserve an increase, so when review time comes around, they're getting that increase. Nobody's gonna just come and say, here's some more money, it's really nice that you've done all these great things. That's not how it works in business, so you've gotta ask for it, and what's the worst they can say is no. But if you don't ask, you're never gonna get it.
That is called bad assery.
It is. Somewhere after a no, there's a yes. So you keep going.
Great place to wrap everything up. Can I get a round of applause for this?